Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute. You got so much going on in your life. I mean, your title just goes on and on. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yes, and I got the list of all the different healing frequencies if you want, because you're about, I guess, music,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't realize that there are these healing tones that a lot of mental health professionals and energy healing people are using, and they really do work.
Okay. Yeah. And we can totally get into that. And I'd like to begin our journey with something that I know that we're all getting a little tired of, which is talking about COVID and surviving a pandemic. But it was a transformational time for all of us. So how did you ultimately survive that time period, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
It changed it dramatically because I lost a huge amount of business. I'm just going to be transparent there because a lot of people would come into my office and I would have clients that way. And it switched to where I did a lot more like what we're doing now,
Yeah.
like doing Zoom and talking to people over the phone. And to be real transparent, when I first moved up here, I only had one person as competition. So I was doing awesome. And now all these people want to learn hypnosis, so they want to do meditation. There's so many apps out there. So that was really, competitive towards, for me that I had to lead towards more coaching, how can I shift people's perspectives and stuff. And this technique that I channeled and I learned, everyone that has experienced it or wraps their head around it and gets the logic of it is like, oh my God, this is like incredible. Because the problem is a lot of people tell you, well, be positive, be more grateful, light and love. But if you don't know how to get there, it's nothing. And so when people are really stuck in anger or their pride or hatred or grief or depression, there are steps you can take to walk you out of it, literally walk you out of it. And it's been scientifically proven by Dr. Hawkins. And I got this information, I channeled it in 2012 when I wrote my first book. And when I wanted to see, is this actually factual? Will it do any good for humanity? I discovered his work and I was like, oh my God, it lines up 100%, 100%. But when I tried to contact him, he died that year. So it really sucked because I wanted to tell him, you stumbled on something that is golden, golden. Because I've talked to people that are stuck in hate and anger and can't forgive and despair. And in 20 minutes, they're laughing and smiling and going, what did you just do? I actually just forgave that person. What did you do? And I show them the chart. This is all the steps I took you. And they're like, that's crazy, but it worked. And so I tell people, and you can find the image on my website, Master the Upper Rooms. It's under free stuff, under images, and it shows 3D human consciousness, 4D human consciousness, and then 5D. And I've used it on myself. I've used it with my kiddo. I've used it with friends. I've used it with clients. It just helps me understand where a person's mindset is and can I shift their perspective so they're not so miserable inside? You
So
know what? Yeah.
yeah, no, 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 I get it. So I want to get a really good handle with all of the everything that's going on with you with therapy, coaching, being a spiritual advisor, a writer, all of these things. I want to know if we boiled everything down to its essence and I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I'm helping people live a better life. I'm helping people to be unapologetically you. That's really what I do is how can I support you become the best version of yourself?
So what did you
It's
want to
not
be?
about me. And that's
Right.
the beauty of what I do. Sorry, I just interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're good.
Is I listen to the guidance that I get because they know you better than I do. And I look at it as I'm just a messenger. So the best way to describe me is my nickname is the pinhole of light. So when you're stuck in the darkness, I shine this flashlight in there and I get right to the nitty gritty of this is what's probably holding you back. And I'll tell you what I hear, what I get, or what I see. And a lot of times people are like, oh my God, I never thought of that. And I've had people be in therapy for like 10, 20, 15 years. And I just have a phone conversation, a consult, and they're like, you just nailed me. How do you do that? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I just listen,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's the most important thing. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
It's kind of funny. I wanted to be a singer and a dancer.
Okay. Okay. Did you do that? How did you evolve to where you are today? Take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were the seeds of therapy and helping people? How did that happen?
That's a really interesting question because, and I actually did a YouTube video about it of how I became a hypnotherapist. And a lot of people have listened to it and watched it and been like, oh my God, I have chills on my arms. So when I originally is from California, Bay Area, and became a single mom, was in the wine industry business and moved up to Oregon and to, I could afford to be a single mom up here at the time than back then. And when 9/11 hit and the market just plummeted here in Oregon, I went to see a spiritual friend and she said, for a reading. She's like, you've done everything you need to do up here. The perfect job is waiting for you in back in California. And that's what you're supposed to do. It's what you're meant to do. And I looked at her going, I can't do that. I don't get child support. I can't afford to do that. And she's like, no, this is what you're meant to do, your calling. And no way I was going to do that. So I called a family friend in the Sacramento area and I said, can I stay with you and look for, a job down there? They said, sure. About a week and a half later, I got a call from a gentleman that saw my resume on monster.com and said, can you show up here? I want to interview you. Show up in an hour and a half. I said, sure. So I went to the center and it was Positive Changes Hypnosis. And I walk in and I'm like, dude, I know all about hypnotherapy. I know about meditation. I was just so over the moon. Gives me a tour of the whole facility, sits down in the conference room, and I had a portfolio that was like 3-inch binder, just all this stuff that I did. And I said, do you want to see my portfolio? And the guy looks at me and goes, oh no, I already knew I was going to hire you the minute I read your resume. Let's just work about, your hours and holidays and that stuff. He's like, the job is yours. And I was like blown away. And the perfect thing that I love about that place is they paid for me to get trained as a hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
And I got extensive training in weight loss, stop smoking, personal change, cancer, hypnobirthing, even nutrition. I got an award, I think it was in 2004, as the best nutrition coach of the year. And I also became friends with my district manager. And two brothers actually started Positive Changes Hypnosis. It was Michael and Patrick Porter. And when I became best friends with Michael and I started to share what I was doing with clients, he was like, I've met hundreds of hypnotherapists, but I've never met anyone like you. And as soon as he knew about my channeling, my spiritual side, he was like, that was the cherry on top. He's like, you are way too good for this place. You need to start your own business. And he was very kind enough. He gifted me $500 worth of free software,
Wow.
Dreamweaver back then, to start it. I took a class at some high school of how to do it. But now here's the kicker. About the day before Thanksgiving, I got in a disagreement with the receptionist and I thought she was trying to get me fired. And I went to my manager and I said, hey, I think she's trying to get me fired. And she said, Actually, she is. And here's your final check. Day before Thanksgiving. And I'm like, you can't do this. I'm the best one here. I got like 3 months of clients booked with you guys. You just gave me an award. And she said, well, she's family and you're not. So you got to go. So I went home and I was like, God, if this is my calling, my gift that everyone says it is, give me a sign that is so clear I can't mistake it because I love what I do. I know this is my calling. So I called that lady, left her a voicemail message, and I thanked her for firing me. And I told her, I'm going to look back at this as a blessing in disguise. So thank you. Well, the very next day, a client that became a friend came over for Thanksgiving, and she said, I am so sorry about what happened to you. And I've been sitting on this nest egg, and I wanted to know if you could use it. No strings attached. And in the Thanksgiving card was a check for $10,000.
Wow.
And she said, I want you to start your own business. And when I told Michael Porter what happened, he said, well, of course, you were so loyal, Kerie. You would not have willingly left. The universe had to kick you in the butt to make you leave. And he said, here's the thing about you, is he said, we're a franchise. And back then they had like 65 centers across the US. He's like, we're a franchise. When you go to McDonald's, you expect to get the same exact Big Mac. But you look at a person and you're like, oh, I got this secret sauce you're gonna love. It's just for you. He said, you can't do that. And he's like, you've been doing that with clients, and that's why they love you, is I use that spiritual side of me and I listen, what can I do for this person? What can I do?
Yeah.
And I listen, and it works because they do know you better than anything else.
Wow, that's a great story. Who's been an inspiration? Who's been a hero for you in your life?
I would have to say Abraham Hicks. When I first saw Esther Hicks, I think it was in gosh, it was maybe like 2003, 2002. But when I saw them, there was maybe 80 to 100 people in the room. So small. They were just starting out. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And the second time I saw them, there was like a thousand or 1,500 people. They had a huge room. And I really got the information that they were talking about. It clearly resonated with me. And I, for 2 years, taught a law of attraction class at a public library. And then one year I decided I didn't want to teach it anymore. I want to do it. And that's the sad truth. There's a lot of people are like, oh, I'm all law of attraction. Let's talk about it. But when I did the mastermind class, my classroom size cut in half. It went from like 30 people to 10 people that were serious. No, let's do this. And for me, in 10 months, I manifested over 22 things my heart desired. I even wrote a book about it, affirming and focusing on living a better life. And that was interesting because I woke up one day and I was told, you're going to write this book. Here's the table of contents. And I was like, what? And they're like, go to your computer. Go to your computer. We're going to write this book. And I just listened and channeled and typed and typed. And when I got to pay this third chapter about your emotions, that's where I got the information about all our thoughts and emotions do have an energetic set point. They matter. And what was really cool is one of my friends works at UC Davis Medical Center. She's a social worker. When I had her read the first few chapters, she was like, how do you know this? You're not a psychiatrist. You're not a psychologist. You're not a social worker. You're not a counselor, but this is all in my continued education. How do you know this? And I was like, I just listen and they tell me. But when you think about the world right now, so this is where we have to be serious, Joe. When you think about the world right now, we are having a mental health crisis. Depression rate is so high. They call it the anxious generation. these young teens and kids are glued to their devices, glued to their phones. When you and I were growing up, we played outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. When we watched our cartoons and then the cartoons went off and we played outside. We didn't watch soap operas. The lifestyle is completely different, and it's rather concerning because there's so much life that's being missed out on, and none of us can turn back the clock and change the past. We can only change where we're at right now, all the choices we make going forward.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten, I would say, when I learned about Katie Byron's work, I
Yeah.
really love it how people are a mirror reflection. And there was one part I totally digged, and I'm going to say a bad word here to some people, but it is a lot allowed on TV. The word bitch. So one woman was very offended when anyone called her that word. It just like cut her like a knife. And Katie Byron asked her, she said, well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever never been a bitch in your whole entire life? And the woman said, no. And she said, okay, so when you were a bitch, how did that make you feel? And she said, I felt empowered. I felt like I had a voice. I was standing up for myself. And she said, yeah, but why it hurts you is because you're looking at it a negative, as an insult, when really that person's making that comment to make you feel bad about yourself. So you should look at it as, yeah, thank you for calling me a bitch because it means I'm empowered. I'm standing up for myself, and you feel threatened or intimidated by what we're talking about. And so it's kind of like you're attacking me, and we don't have to call each other names. We
Yeah.
can have a civil conversation.
So of everything that you've done and evolved into and achieved in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think the ones that make me the most happy is when people transform their lives and they share their stories. Like I remember this woman had placenta preva and she listened to just my generalized recording, and she sent me an email with a picture of Quincy. Here's Quincy. He was born on this date. I've had people that listen to my recording of that were doing hormone replacement therapy, and they got pregnant with the IVF series, and they've sent me pictures of their babies, and I'm like, oh my God, it's yes. Or you inspired me, and I cleared all the clutter in my house. I sold my house. I quit my horrible job, and I moved to one woman, I think, moved to Alaska or something. She's like, I've always wanted to live there. You just, you inspired me to believe in myself. And so all those stories people share, it really warms my heart because they're no longer existing. They're living, they're thriving. That's what really um, makes my day is hearing, the success. There's one podcast, because I have a podcast called Master the Upper Rooms. I did one um, about the magic within you and how to activate it. And there was this one woman that I've worked with for many years. I helped her manifest a husband, and them as a couple were, she did find him, but them as a couple spent a year and a half trying to get pregnant and did all the treatments and stuff. And she got super frustrated and contacted me and said, I want to have this baby, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I explained how she was stuck in 3D human consciousness. The You're forcing it, you're stuck in anxiety and fear, and then you have frustration. Story short, I made a custom recording for her. She listened to it. In 30 days, she got pregnant. And now she's a little over 13 weeks pregnant and expecting a baby girl in April.
Wonderful.
So
That's great.
stories like that, I'm
Yeah.
like, yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have so much that's going on, all of these people that you affect and that you work with. they have this perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, fans, readers, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a person that is extremely non-judgmental because I have a history of toxic people growing up in a trauma bonding environment. I've had a history of narcissism. And so when I see someone, I can shine that flashlight into the dark and it doesn't scare me. And what I hear from a lot of people is, I treat you like a friend. I don't treat you like a client. And to me, I think that's what a lot of people want and a lot of people need, because they want someone that will sit with them in their worst moment and hold their hand and say, it's okay. It's not that bad. I know what you mean. I've been there before. And it's pretty amazing because I've even had people sit here and confess that, yeah, I'm narcissistic. Yeah, I'm such an angry person. I hate myself. And I've been able to be like, it's okay, I understand. And so I really think that approach helps people because I'm not looking at them as a number or a dollar sign. I'm looking at them as a human being that wants to improve their life and change.
Yeah.
And so when a lot of clients leave, I get hugs all the time. Hugs all the time. And I've been told by many clients, the world needs more people like you in it. And that's why I want people to, learn this technique because it can have a ripple effect. I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm not going to give you a fish. Let me teach you how to fish.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So if anyone out there wants to listen to your podcast, hire you, get your books, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
They can go to Master the Upper Rooms, and I do coaching, I do custom recordings, I have a bunch of audio stuff, I have free stuff, and you
Okay.
can find me on YouTube. I pretty much said, you just Google Kerie Logan, you'll find me on many different platforms.
Okay. Excellent. Kerie, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your story. And we need more of what you're doing and who you are out in the world. We need the lights. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Joe, and you have a fabulous day.
You too. Take care.